If you want a career helping people, working with people's emotions and bodies, and you're wondering what kind of training or education do I need to get to do that, this video is going to help you answer that so clearly, and I'm so excited to get into it. So we're diving into the question, how do I become a somatic practitioner? Hi, I'm Chelsea Horton. I'm the founder and CEO of Healing Embodied, and I have been a board certified dance movement therapist and coach for the last 5 years. So basically, I have taken both paths to becoming a somatic practitioner. I have done the traditional master's degree clinical work. I've done that path. And I have also done the more non-traditional path of becoming a coach or practitioner and having my own company. And I get the question a lot from people. How do you do what you do? Like, what degree do I need? How did you get to do the work that you do today? And I want to answer that question for you. First, there's not one path that's inherently better than the other. It really just depends on what you want to do in your career and the kind of work you want to do in the world, the kind of setting you want to work in, and the kind of people you want to work with. So first, I want to talk about the path that most people are aware of when it comes to working with people's emotions and working with people's bodies, the traditional path. This includes getting a bachelor's in counseling or some sort of psychology field, and then going on to get a master's degree in counseling, somatic therapy. I did dance movement therapy and counseling, which is a mixture of somatic therapy and creative arts therapy. So you go through the traditional educational system to get your qualifications. After you graduate with your master's degree, you then have to go on to do something upwards of 3,600 hours of supervised clinical work. You have to take a test, and there are different levels of licensure that you would apply for. When you go the traditional path, and you get the master's degree, you get the licensure, you are able to work in clinical settings. So for me as a dance movement therapist, I worked in a psychiatric facility. I worked both inpatient and outpatient. Inpatient means people are there overnight, possibly for 3 days. Due to suicidality, harm to self or others. Outpatient is they're able to leave, but they're coming in for their treatment. Other settings might be doctor's offices, clinical group practice, private practice as a therapist. And when you take the traditional path and you have the traditional licensure and credentials, you're able to work with people's insurances. So if you want to work in a more clinical mental health setting, some sort of facility, some sort of established practice, then the traditional route is where you would want to go. When you go the traditional route, you could also work with diagnoses. You're going to be learning the DSM, which is the Diagnostic and Statistical Manual, helping you diagnose your patient. You guys, my dog, she's adorable, and she's taken herself on a little walk around my office. When you work with diagnoses, you have to create a treatment plan based on that diagnosis, especially if you're working with insurance or in some sort of facility. Some other things that you might be able to work with when you go the traditional route is crisis centers, helping people in crisis, helping people post-suicide attempt, helping people who've experienced extreme trauma and they're at the hospital. So you're more in the clinical medical setting of things. If this is the kind of work you do and this is the kind of setting you want to be able to work in, a master's degree is a must. Again, that is where I started my career as a somatic practitioner. I went the traditional path, worked in the clinical setting. Now, I want to talk about the limitations of going the traditional route. And this is something that most people don't know that I didn't really learn until after I graduated with my master's degree. First, and I'm speaking as someone who lives and works in the United States, you can only practice in the state that you're licensed in. I'm hoping this will change one day, but this is how it's been for a very long time, and it's very hard for the system to change. That's another thing. It's very hard for the system to change. So you can only practice in the state that you're licensed in. Each state in the United States has its own licensure requirements, and they're different from each other. Some are a little more lax, some are a lot more complicated. I currently live in California. California has some of the most intense requirements for licensure. So I got my master's degree in the state of Illinois. All of the qualifications to be able to get licensure as a clinical mental health counselor in the state of Illinois. I moved to California, and California had different requirements for licensure. So my plan was, okay, when I move to California, I will take the additional courses that California requires in order for me to take the test and get my license. No, no. It was not that easy. No, that actually wasn't even an option because California had just recently changed the law saying if you didn't have this one particular course that they require, if that wasn't a part of your master's program, you could not remediate it, you could not take it outside of your program, and therefore you could not get licensed. So one of the cons of the traditional system is the bureaucracy, the limitations, the constant changing rules and laws and restrictions. I've taken a deep breath here. So, whatever state you decide to practice in, say you start a private practice as a mental health counselor, say you have a somatic therapy or a dance therapy degree, and you want to be able to also have your licensure as a mental health counselor, have your own private practice, take insurance. You are limited to working with people in that state because most insurances do not cover out of state providers. So if you want to have a company or a practice that has international reach, having your traditional license and certification is really going to limit you. You are not able to work with diagnoses outside of your state, outside of your licensure in that state. So that is option one for getting your certification and your education and training in somatic therapy, in somatic work of some sort, the traditional path. Option number two is getting a coaching certification. Now, not all coaching certifications are created equal, and I'm actually going to start with the cons of this path. First of all, there are so many different somatic coaching certifications out there right now. Just as there are so many master's programs that you can take, there are so many coaching certifications. But the majority of these coaching certifications will not actually give you the robust, necessary training to do effective and ethical somatic work. Most of the online coaching certifications that I've seen are somewhere between 3 and 6 months. A master's degree is 2 years. Again, a lot of the coaching certifications are between 3 and 6 months. I, as a professional who has done both of these options, do not think that 3 to 6 months is enough time to be able to effectively guide people into their bodies. The other downside to a lot of these coaching certification programs is that they're more focused on volume of students than they are quality of training. That often manifests as their requirements for certification are quite low. It's things like a self-assessment or watching the recordings of all the classes. There's not a lot of hands-on training. Because they want a large volume of students, they don't have facilitators ensuring that the students are effectively practicing the skills that they're learning. This makes me go, again, the same can go with the traditional path. There are online counseling degrees, and I'm like, no one is making sure that these people are ethically and effectively applying what they're learning. Okay. So back to the non-traditional path. When you get something like a coaching certification, a somatic certification outside of the traditional path, you have a lot more freedom with what you can do with that. For me, I left the traditional path and I blazed my own trail. I now have my own company, my own business, and we work with people all around the world, which is so freaking cool. I'm not limited to one place. I can work with people all around the world online. When you do the non-traditional path, you're not working with diagnoses, so you can really just meet the human as they are and create the program or the process based on that person's unique needs versus their diagnosis. You're able to do work that feels really authentic to you versus trying to fit yourself into the rigid box of what the system requires you to be. When I left the traditional system and started my own company, I felt like I could finally really bring myself and the wholeness of my humanity and my personality forward in the work that I did with clients. I get to work with people's emotions in a way that really supports them and also feels deeply fulfilling for me. With the non-traditional coaching path, you're also not stuck in the system that typically sets you up for burnout, compassion fatigue, and vicarious trauma. You're really able to create your own career and your own structure in a way that supports you best and how you want to work with people. So since I've lived both of these worlds, I've seen the coaching world where some people have absolutely zero certifications and they are doing somatic work with people. I've seen the traditional world where people have all the letters after their names, and they're still not that great either. I've seen and lived both paths very intimately. And I saw such a gap in the industry of the somatic world. The traditional path measures your efficacy and skill based on standardized tests. The somatic coaching path barely even does anything to measure or ensure that you're doing effective work. And so I wanted to create a somatic practitioner training that finally bridges this gap and answers the question, what if I don't want to go to the traditional path? But what if your typical coaching certification program doesn't feel like enough? And that's why I created the Healing Embodied Practitioner Training Program. This is a year-long, accredited international certification program. If I am going to have students that put my certification letters after their name, I want to ensure that they are doing good work in the world. 3 to 6 months is not enough. And for me, it was really important that our students have a year of training to deeply integrate and implement what they're learning. First, to be able to apply the somatic tools and principles to yourself, to your own body, so that you can be the embodiment of what you teach to your clients. That is foundational, and that is woven into every part of our certification program. The other part is hands-on practice and implementation of what you're learning. The majority of the Healing Embodied Practitioner Training Program is hands-on work. This is done with a facilitator present so that we can give feedback to our students in real time. We're teaching our students things like how to work with the nervous system, how to identify trauma responses, how to work with emotions through expression and creativity. It also includes parts work, inner child work, shadow work. So it goes beyond just somatic work, things like somatic skills, self-regulation, understanding the nervous system. It takes it beyond that into how do I channel this emotion, this energy, this thing that I'm feeling in my body into expression, into vitality, into authenticity. This certification is the first of its kind, and we are so proud of it. Another part of this program that most certification programs, and definitely not my master's degree, has is how do you cultivate a career? How do you market yourself? How do you talk about this work? How do you start connecting with potential clients? How do you reverse engineer and create a career that really is in alignment with what you desire and how you want to work? How can you bring the wholeness of who you are, your authenticity, your desires into your work with clients? These are just some of the many things that we teach our students in our certification program. So if you want the freedom and the flexibility of the non-traditional coaching path, but you want high standards and quality of training, then the Healing Embodied Practitioner Training Program was made for you. We only take a limited number of students in each cohort because we're not interested in having these massive classes that feel really disconnected and don't have that hands-on training. This training is founded in my clinical knowledge, education, training, and experience, as well as my 5 years as a somatic coach. If you're interested in learning more about the Healing Embodied Practitioner Training Program, I've got all the information for you below. You can see our website for an overview of the program, or you can schedule a one-on-one chat with me. I absolutely love doing these calls, connecting with people who are interested in this work, and really helping you connect with what is your ideal career and what path would truly be best for you. I'll help you connect with your vision, your desires for your career, the kind of work you want to do in the world, and I'll answer any questions that you have about the Healing Embodied Practitioner Training Program. You can find the link to book that info call with me below. If you're interested in the world of somatics, trauma, working with emotions, understanding your own body, understanding how to do this work with others, be sure to subscribe to this channel. When you like and subscribe, it really helps us to know what kind of content serves you best so that we can make more of that. Thanks so much for watching.